Hello, everybody. I'm Matthew Lang. My pronouns are they, them, and this is, oh God, what are you watching? I have a new guest today. I will let them introduce themselves. Hello, how are you? Tell us who you are.
Hey, my name is Emmy Carlyle Albritton. My pronouns are she, her. Yeah, I'm an actor, singer, filmmaker from New York. I guess from North Carolina, lives in New York.
Yes.
And I'm super stoked to be here
I'm so
talking to you
happy you're
today.
here. I really wanted to talk to
I'm
someone
so
who
happy.
is a woman and a filmmaker. So I was like really excited to get you on
Mhm.
too. And we know each other from working in Times Square, which was
Yeah.
so fun. I know.
Oh, yeah.
I don't plan on going back, but we'll see how that goes. So right now you're just kind of in North Carolina waiting to go back to New York, or are you still, what
Yeah.
other things are you working on right now?
Yeah, so I am here for a bit for the summer to kind of regroup and not have to pay rent in New York for a while I'm not working.
Hey, hey.
Um, yeah, but I just finished a short film that's in the festival circuit right now. I'm waiting to hear back from some of those. I'm doing some writing. I'm working on writing a feature script.
Yay.
And yeah, then just doing self tapes and auditions and
Oh, the
trying to
joy.
stay sane.
Yes, I understand that as well. I'm trying to get my reel together and stuff, and I just keep
Yep.
running into obstacles. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
had to do a dance self tape for the first time yesterday, and that was
what kind of dance did you have to do?
thankfully it wasn't hard. It was like a rock musical, so it wasn't
Oh,
like five, six, seven,
oh,
eight. It was
just a lot of
like
stomping and
it
angst.
was a lot of stomping, a lot of like attitude, be
Yes.
funky with it. And I was like, all right, I'm in my garage. Here we
Okay.
go.
Just breaking shit. That's great.
Yeah,
That's awesome though. I'm glad you're still
yeah.
like working on stuff and trying to be creative during the madness that is the world right now. So
We're trying,
yes.
trying.
So
Yeah.
besides the two movies we're talking about today, have you seen anything else recently that you've, enjoyed, or something that maybe you were just like, meh, anything that you've seen recently?
It's like on the opposite end of the spectrum from like what we're talking about today, but I
It's
went and
fine.
saw the Black Widow movie
Oh yeah,
like
how
the
was that?
day it came out.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Like
Yeah.
I am a very strong proponent as I guess as like a woman, female, whatever. But
Yeah.
I'm very like female representation in superhero movies is something I've gotten very excited about and passionate about.
Yeah.
Um and so I was talking to my stepdad about it because he went with us and he was like, "Oh, like what other female superhero movies are there?" I'm like, "One.
Oh no.
There is one other."
Hopefully more on the way.
I
Are there
know.
any others that you know
Yeah,
that
yeah,
are
yeah.
coming out?
I mean, I don't know that it's female centric, but
Yeah.
like all like the women in Black Panther are all like
Yes.
rad as hell.
And I saw Black
Um,
Panther, so I'm assuming they'll probably up the roles for them as well, which will be
yeah, and I
really cool.
think I what I've heard, what's been rumored, that since the passing of Chadwick
Chadwick.
Boseman, which is unfortunate, but what they're doing with that rumored, nothing confirmed, but
Yeah.
rumored is that Shuri, who is T'Challa's sister
Hmm.
and is like an incredible character, is gonna
Yeah.
step up and like step into the Black Panther role.
She was
From what
definitely
I've
my
heard,
favorite part of the movie that
yeah,
I saw.
yeah,
So I was
she's
like,
cool.
I
She's
want
rad.
her more. Yes, she's great.
Yeah, and
Okay.
like obviously anyone who follows me on social media or like knows me as a person knows that I'm obsessed with Captain Marvel and like
Brie Larson.
Brie
Yes.
Larson
Anna
and
Kendrick.
yeah,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, I saw Annette the other day, which is the new movie
Ooh.
with Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard.
Mm.
It was at the Cannes Film Festival, and it I got to see like a special screening here in Atlanta because a friend
Yeah.
of mine is a critic and got a screening. It was just the two of us, which I was like, ooh, fancy. And it is an opera of sorts. It is very strange. It's going to be very divisive, and I know it
Cool.
comes out in I think August 8th or something in theaters, and then August 20th on Amazon Prime. So if you want something very strange,
Love it.
it is very much that. So it is
Yeah.
like a rock opera with Adam Driver, Marion Cotillard. It is very strange. There's a wooden baby that's a big character in it. That's all I'm
Cool.
gonna say. You'll see what happens.
Cool.
I very much left the theater like, okay.
I
So
love movies like that. I love
yeah.
movies like that. I feel like, especially when I was like a teenager, I like all of my peers were watching like Transformers and Step Brothers, which is like no shade. Those movies have their place and they're fun. But like then I was like 16 and watching like Up in the Air or like The Voices or like just like weird indie movies. And then I'd try to show them to my friends and they'd be like, this is boring, nothing happens. I'm like, but life is happening.
Believe me, I feel you all the time. They're like, this one's not in English. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, try. This is coming from someone who rarely reads books. So I'm like, this is my reading time on the movie screen. So
get it where you can.
I know. So yeah, that's been something kind of fun, but I'm glad I've been trying to get my guests also to recommend stuff that I like haven't seen either, because I've been excited to see stuff that people are passionate about. And I know that you really enjoy like Anna Kendrick and stuff. So this was cool to see another film of hers that I haven't seen. So the first film we can talk about is Drinking Buddies, which was your recommendation, directed by Joe Swanberg. Yes, who is also actor, writer, director,
multi-hyphenate.
Yeah. So do you want to give us a breakdown of what the movie is, and then we can kind of chat about it?
Yeah, sure. So this movie, directed by Joe Swanberg, starring Jake Johnson, Olivia Wilde, Anna Kendrick, and Ron Livingston, is about two best friends played by Jake Johnson and Olivia Wilde, and they are brewers in a Chicago brewery. And it kind of explores the blurry lines of like, they both have significant others, but they're also best friends. So like, how far is too far before it's considered like cheating, but they never actually do anything physical on screen, at least. Sometimes get a little bit more like emotionally intimate than they might with their other partners. And it's a very interesting kind of exploration of friendship that could be something else, but boundaries. I think it's really interesting.
So when was the first time you had watched this? What was your first like experience with it?
So my first experience with it, and part of why like it is like a very special film to me, is because it was kind of, I knew who Anna Kendrick was, and at like 16, 17 was like, I'm gonna watch everything she's ever done. And so that's how I watched like Up in the Air and 50-50, which is one of my favorite movies. And then this movie came out in 2013. So I think I was like either 17 or 18, depending on what time of year it came out. I don't remember. And I watched it, and it was kind of the first time I had been like, oh, indie movies, because I had only seen like mainstream, like things that I saw, like went to see in theaters. Like I knew who Anna Kendrick was by name after seeing her in Pitch Perfect. And then went back and saw her other stuff. And so it was kind of like my first time being like, oh, there are these things. These movies, this could be interesting. And it was like, I've always kind of felt, and I feel like I've talked about this a little bit on like my social media stuff, where it's like I've always never been like bullied and sad, but I've always been like, my brain's a little different than the people around me. And like seeing movies like Drinking Buddies is the first time I was like, oh, there are people who think like me out in the world somewhere. That's cool.
It's such a great feeling. I know. I understand that, where you're like, oh, I'm not alone. That's awesome.
And one of my favorite things to read about it going into it was that the whole movie is improv. The entire movie is
I read about that afterwards, and I was like, oh, okay, which also makes sense too.
So like part of Joe Swanberg's deal for all of his projects is that he doesn't write dialogue. He writes very clear outlines and very clear, like, it's not like maybe they'll do this, whatever. It's like, here are the beats of the scene and here's the plot points. But like, he turns on the camera and it's like, here's where you start, here's where I need it to end.
Go for it.
What
would your characters do?
And it's like all the actors have done a whole, like all of their work. So it's like, it's not like they're ever like, oh, I don't know what to say because like I'm just, it's like they fully know who they are. And so they just live in the world, which I think gives the film like such a beautiful, like naturalistic like vibe.
That's
because it's just like, it's banter.
I enjoyed that, especially because it reminded me of, which I talked about in the first episode with J. Ray, The Woman Who Ran, which is by Hong Sang-soo. He kind of does the same thing where he'll like have a situation and he like has a general idea, but lets the actors, they're like, okay, now y'all just kind of do what would happen. And it's very much like that. So I say, if you like enjoy Drinking Buddies, definitely look into his stuff, because he does a similar thing. And all of his movies are all like always drinking and stuff too. So that leads to some, drama and interesting conversations. So yeah, it was really cool to dive into this and kind of have that familiarity of those kind of movies that I really love, and seeing this in an American cinema, which is in a different setting. And so with the characters, is there any of them that you fully connected with in any way that you really enjoyed, or was it kind of like they're all messes or something?
I mean, yes. But no, I remember as a teenager going into it so I could watch Anna Kendrick, I was like, oh, I'm totally I'm totally a Jill. I'm totally an Anna Kendrick character.
I immediately was like, Emmy could slip into this role immediately and just do this.
But then watching it was really interesting to revisit it yesterday, watching it again to prep for this, because I was like, oh no, I think I'm a Kate.
See, and perspective changes. Yeah.
In my life, I was like, oh, I'm, again, no shade to anything. No. She's an awesome character. She's a very strong woman, a very strong human. But I'm like, I have changed. I
see who I am now.
Here we are. Yeah, but something interesting, not necessarily I personally connected with, but something interesting I noticed about Ron Livingston's character. So every time I've watched it before, I've been like, oh yeah, he's the kind of skeezy, white bread, straight man guy who's just there, and then he goes away. But this time I was watching it, and he kind of tells us from the jump that he's a skeezy weirdo, because he mentions narcissists and narcissism twice. He gives Kate the book that's oh, it's narcissism, blah, blah, blah. And then he gives Jill the book of poetry called What Narcissism Means to Me. And I'm like, oh, you told us.
Yes. I'm an asshole.
You straight up said, oh, hello, I'm a narcissist. How are you?
Yeah.
But I had never noticed that.
Yeah.
On just viewing it as just I'm gonna watch this movie, but viewing it with a more intellectual or critical lens yesterday, I was like, you freaking told us.
Yeah, and
from the beginning.
That's what I found interesting too, is the pairings of the two couples. At first I was like, I feel like they need to be switched. I feel like I also was, when they went on their little camping trip together, I was still caught off guard, because I literally put it down in my notes. I was like, I gasped when Anna Kendrick and Ron Livingston kissed. I was like, why? But which I understood more from I guess her point of view at first, because I know she was kind of worried about all the talks about getting married and stuff like that, not really getting a straightforward answer from Jake Johnson. Is that his name? Every time I see him, I'm like, I would die for you. I love him so much. He could play the biggest asshole, and I'm like, oh, yes. It's I would throw away everything just for you. And I don't know why. There's something about him that just feels comfortable. And because in New Girl, I watched New Girl.
I was about to say, have you watched New Girl? Have you watched New
Girl? Yes, I did. And I was like, who the
show.
fuck is this? This is my favorite man alive. Yeah. And even in this, there was something so charming about him and his relationship with Olivia Wilde, because their friendship was so cute and exciting, and they were at a distance with each other that I enjoyed, where it never fully got romantic, but you could see that that's where it was trying to go, and you see that they were wondering how they could explore that. So I was wondering, because they worked together, how long have they worked together? Was there something that maybe happened in the past? I was trying to piece together what their relationship was prior to us dropping in on their scenario, but it seems like a relatively new company or something they started, or
I think I heard, because the party at the beginning where you everyone meets each other is an anniversary party for the company of some kind. I don't know why or where I heard it, but I thought I heard 3 years, like a 3-year anniversary, but it might have been like a first anniversary, like we did it, we made it the first year. But yeah, I do think it's a fairly new early company.
Yeah, and so when they went camping and stuff, I thought it was very strange that, you know, those two were attached at the hip, and then the other two were just kind of left to go hang out in the woods. And I was like, it seemed like a weird pairing at first and stuff. And I was like, so what are they doing? And you would like, I loved how it went back and forth between these two having a blast and then these two like walking miserably down the trail.
Yeah, like,
but it also seemed like their vibes kind of mixed better with each other. And until you start to realize, I guess, the actual deep relationship between her and Jake Johnson's character, because that was something where I was like, oh, are we going to see a crack in their relationship? And I think it shows at time, like at the one point where she's like, I'm going to go to wherever the hell she goes. Where does she go?
Costa Rica.
Yeah, Costa Rica. And she's
I'm
like,
gonna go on this girls trip.
Yeah. So I was, and that kiss came so out of nowhere, but I feel like they were both very just kind of in a weird place where they were second guessing their relationships. So yeah, I found that interesting that she was just like, I gotta go, and then left for, I don't remember why she went. I think she,
it was like a college girls trip or something.
Okay. Which I thought maybe because Olivia Wilde and Ron Livingston's character, because they like broke up that night or right around there, that maybe they were gonna go meet in Costa Rica or something. And I was like, are we gonna find out anything else? But it doesn't seem like that happened. So
no,
I guess she was just out there getting away, piecing together what actually happened that day where they shared a kiss. And that's all we saw. So do you think something more happened, or do you think that's all it was? Because I remember he was like, did you actually do anything else? She's like, no.
Yeah, no, I don't think anything else happened. I mean, there's this scene when she's like, oh, he stopped by the farmer's market and gave me this book of poetry.
Yeah.
So I think he wanted something else to happen. So I think kind of like what you were saying, like they were both questioning their relationships and then the kiss happened. I think it was a very, very confirming moment for both of them, but in opposite ways.
Yes.
He was like, Ron Livingston was like, great, can't have Olivia Wilde anymore. And Anna Kendrick was like, yes, Jake Johnson.
Yes, exactly.
Here, like that I know now. Great. Yeah. And so, and then he like broke up Olivia Wilde and then was like, I'm gonna, like, part of me wishes and wonders, like, did they film the scene where he shows up at the farmer's market?
Oh yeah.
But I'm also really glad we didn't see it because I didn't want to see his face anymore.
Yeah. I know, I was over it.
But yeah, then he like shows up and is like, oh, here's this book. Let me tell you I'm a narcissist. Here you go. And then she like is a very kind person. The part of me that still kind of identifies with that character is the like when they were on the walk and he was like talking about like, oh, like, I don't know what she sees in me. And like, I don't like, maybe like, and then he mentions like, if I had met someone like her, or like, you know, if I'd met someone like you.
I know. I was like,
you can literally like, if like as you're watching, you can see Anna Kendrick just go,
yeah. Oh, okay.
You can see like a little flinch where she's like, oh no.
Yeah.
But it is that like that part of, and I think this comes from like, I think it's a very female experience. At least, I mean, from my perspective, I don't know about other genders, but like very female experience where it's like, oh no, I have to make you feel okay.
Yeah.
I have to be nice to you.
Oh yeah. Well, and she's so, alone in the woods with this bigger dude too. So it's like, I don't know, and they just met. So it's like, okay.
Yeah, but then like he also like when he comes to like the farmer's market and like gives her this book, she could have been like, oh no, thank you. But she was like, oh yeah, thanks, sure. Yeah. And like takes it and it's like there's a bookmark in it. So she's like reading it.
Yeah.
She's like, but I don't think it comes from a place of like, oh, maybe I like him. It comes from a place of like, okay, I have to be nice to you because I was taught to be polite and to be quiet and to like be like a good person.
Yeah.
And like that's something that I connect to. Like that's something that I can like relate to on a pretty deep level.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so
yeah, it's like I don't think it's
I'm sorry.
It's the world.
Yeah. No, God.
But I do think I don't think any of that comes from a romantic place for her. Yeah. I don't even think the kiss came from a romantic place from her.
Yeah.
I think that was just she was like, and she even said it. She's like, I have this really nervous feeling right now.
Yeah.
Like I like my heart's beating really fast, and I just have this like I'm just like I had this nervous feeling. I think it's like the line that she says, and then he just leans over and kisses her, and I'm like, "You're a narcissist. You told us. I don't know why I'm surprised by this."
I know that. Yeah, it was definitely upsetting, and I know she's been, I think, worried about maybe Jake spending a lot of his time at the brewery, and then they go out. Usually I'm like, do these people drink every single day? Like, is that just like
I know, that's something I've noticed many times before. I'm like, they drink water once.
Oh my god. And it's just because it's raining. Even during like lunch and like their little lunch breaks, they have like a glass of beer just hanging out, and then they go back to work. I'm like, okay, I mean, I guess that does happen, and it kind of reminded me of like an It's like, Always Sunny kind of situation, but they're also not that terrible of people, so which was good to see. But yeah, I found that interesting, which I think that maybe even strengthened the relationship between like Olivia Wilde's character and Jake Johnson, where they're in a like a heightened state of emotions and stuff, especially by like drinking, and they just see each other as like these fun people. They're the fun people. Each other is like the fun person in their life, where they also have like their romance, which aside is like a totally different experience, but then they can come together and get their goofy, ridiculous selves out. And I think that's when, you know, they start to mistake things for
that's when the lines get blurred.
Yes, and especially once she gets single and it's just like, hey everybody, she like pops in and is just like, let's go out and get drunk tonight. And I think that's also where he kind of got into this like, you know, machismo thing where he's like, oh, I have to protect her, and I have to because he has feelings for her, but I don't think he wanted to actually face that. So he was just like, I'm gonna protect her so no one else can get her, but why am I doing this? Oh, I love her. Wait, do I? And that whole struggle, and then her also, I think, realizing it, but also trying to stay away from it because she knows that's just gonna lead to trouble.
And that's why I love that fight at the end. Like after they've moved her into her new apartment, and she's like, I'm gonna go out with the guys and have fun, and he's like being the like adult or whatever, and he's like, no, we made plans, like let's go out to dinner. And that exchange of like whenever she says you made your bed, and he's like, well, you slept in it, and then she looks and goes, you didn't stop me. Boom.
Like, I know. And that's when they were like helping each other, and I think that was a really good moment when they were moving in together, because you could tell that almost that they were too similar to actually probably be in a relationship to like or I guess like a functioning healthy relationship with each other, because like when he like fully cut open his hand and is bleeding everywhere, she's like, we got to get my couch. It's like he's like, oh, and I was like, oh my god, I was like, they're both ridiculous. And then so like she was just like more concerned about getting her stuff done when I feel like needed to go to a doctor because that looked really bad. Could get some kind of
his hand, and it's just like
everywhere, and she's like about to throw up. And like I'm like, y'all are disasters. And so she ended up, I guess, I can't remember. Do we know for sure if she actually slept with the guy that works with them, or was that just kind of speculated?
I take it as she did.
Okay, yes, I thought so as well. And I was just like, but I feel like it wasn't so on the nose, but he also drove her to work or something, I think, which, and then he immediately starts hating on that guy because he's like, you chose him over me, which is just like, you're not available, dude. So back off. So yeah, I thought that was interesting when they had their like fun little time together, and I was, you know, there's that tension there the whole time, but and you know, both of them want to discuss it, which they fucking should have, and then but they of course do not go there until it blows up in front of them. And I did enjoy that thing where, you know, I felt bad for him in a way when he was like, you know, we had plans, but then she also knew that like, if we follow through with these plans, it's probably going to end in something that we shouldn't really do. And that's what I liked about her, but neither of them could actually form the right words to say to each other. So it just ended up a messy explosion of crazy. So that was like super frustrating. And I thought when he drove off that he was just, I was like, is he gonna turn around and then be like, fuck it, I'm just gonna like tell her how I feel? But he just kept going. And I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, knowing how it ends with which it's too late to be like spoilers, but these all of these have been about spoilers, so it's fine. Them coming to the understanding at the end where, you know, they leave each other in a very like tense moment and then come together at the end at their little lunch table.
Ending.
Yes, that was
love the ending.
I was like, this is
this
is the ending I needed. I needed them to like just acknowledge like, okay, that's not gonna work. We're really good at being friends, and that's where it needs to stay.
And like the fact that like no words are spoken, it's just he comes and sits down next to her for lunch like they always do, bought her a beer, she slides a few fries over to him, he eats them, and she's like,
and they're both just like, okay.
And then he gives her a banana and she's like, no.
That's what I thought was really cute. Also
They're
just because
little
of the
peace offerings to each other.
And just like the phallic symbolism of that too. Just like, no, I'm not gonna take your banana. I just thought that was cute.
I never thought of that. Oh no.
I just thought it was like a fun little like jab, kind of cute, like
oh my god.
Which going back to just to all over the place, Anna Kendrick, when she comes back and then she's just like, I kissed that dude and I feel really terrible about it. And that was also a moment where I think he finally clicked in with like, this woman really gives a shit about me. She really cares about me. This is something I can't and I don't want to get rid of for something that may or may not be good. And clearly we're already a disaster in our own way. And I like that.
And I think I think like what you were saying about them, like the scene when he cuts his hand and like Olivia Wilde's reaction versus Anna Kendrick's reaction, because she's just like, oh, let me fix it. Let's go in the bathroom and I'll clean it up for you.
Oh, she cares about me. And
Olivia Wilde's like,
and he gets his ass kicked basically by the guy in the car who's the director, which I looked up.
That's Swanberg.
I was like, I was actually looking up right beforehand. I was like, oh, he's an actor, he might be in this. And it was like Angry Man in Car, and I was like, oh great. So
Man in Car.
So I felt like, you know, and that was another thing where like he just like got his ass kicked for this whole like situation too, and she was still like, I'm gonna go hang out with the guys. He was just like, I'm broken and bleeding and stuff, and you're just like, but it was like understandable, because I can see her being like, this is not something we need to toy around with. And while he wanted to make the adult decision to stay through with plans, she was making the adult decision to be like, hey, we need to recognize where this is probably going and how dangerous it could be for our other relationships.
I need to set my boundary.
So that was really nice to see her do that, even though I don't think either of them handled it in the best way. But I think because they're similar, that was so similar that they just kind of butted heads in that moment. And to have that last little moment with them at the end was just what I needed. And I really thought that was super cute.
Kind of like going back to like the scene when like Anna Kendrick has this like huge confession of like, oh, I kissed him, but I don't care about him as a human at all. And she feels so bad about it. That's where the question comes in of like, okay, well, which one's worse? Like, you kissed a guy you don't care about and haven't seen him or thought about him since. Pardon my language. He's been like emotionally fucking this woman for 3 years. And like is like loves her to the ends of the earth, even though they haven't physically crossed any lines. So like, which one is worse? And he's just like, no, you're good.
This is good. And it like, I would hate to say that it's like settling, but I would say that in more of a positive way, where it's like, this is something for sure, and something that I am happy with, where this one could lead to a crazy amount of other different scenarios that are just I'm not secure and following through with that. And neither of them were. And I love that she even like, there's that one moment where she goes back to the guy, Ron Livingston.
And she's Olivia Wilde goes back to,
because I think like, you know, that's, I think a lot of people have experienced of like being in a relationship and getting out of it and being like, I'm free and this is cool. But then like realizing, oh, maybe I missed what I had. And kind of being like, do I want this back? And then like, her kind of being pushed into I can't have this anymore. And I guess going in a somewhat of a destructive like phase afterwards, but still like I feel like on her own terms. So
yeah, I'm gonna say I think it's also interesting how that the scene where she goes back to Ron Livingston's apartment comes right after she's had this whole dinner with Jake Johnson and Anna Kendrick, where she like watched them be in this loving relationship that has like foundation and roots and like is just so solid.
Yeah.
And so like happy and comfortable and just like natural. And she like sees that and is like, oh, well, maybe I'll go back and try to do that again.
Yeah. And
then goes back to Ron Livingston. Ron Livingston's like, no.
Yeah, no, that's not it anymore. Which you could tell like when he like gave her that book in their first like scene that they were like together when she came back from work. And you could tell that their relationship just kind of seemed like on like the end of it. Like they were just kind of like meh, or just kind of going through the motions. They both kind of seemed very bored with each other. And been in that situation too, so it's a lot of this stuff was very relevant. That's what I like too. I wasn't really rooting for anyone. I wasn't fully there was no like huge attachment to anyone of like, oh, I love this person over this. I thought they all had these like complex things about them where it's like that's what people are. They're not just like heroes and villains. There are people that have a mixed mash of like all these conflicting feelings, and that I enjoyed seeing them going through all that, even though they probably didn't want to go through all that. It was still like,
I know, like, oh no,
this is relatable.
And that's right, exactly. And that's what I love about, especially about like indie movies, because like I'm big budget movies do it sometimes also, but like especially like when it's like an indie movie where they don't have like giant studios like looming over them. It's like, oh, we can just make a movie about life.
Yeah, and explore the different feelings.
Like we can just say, oh, hey, look, humans, not good guy, bad guy.
Yeah.
Plot arc, it has to hit these 3 points. It's like, no, here's a movie about the day-to-day, because the day-to-day is really freaking interesting.
Yes, it is.
Like,
absolutely.
Day-to-day life is like, I mean, like I was just talking about superheroes. I love an action movie.
Yeah.
I love a chick flick. I love I love it. But day-to-day life is so freaking interesting. Like you don't need to add drama to make life seem cool.
Yeah, and you don't have to like be heavy-handed with it either, because there's stuff going on with people all the time. Doesn't matter like what's like if you're super happy or like super angry, there's stuff going on. And I think that's what I enjoy about a lot of movies that just kind of focus on the people themselves and relationships, is that you try to explore it yourself and try to pinpoint maybe what they're going through. And I think trying to, with anything, finding your own kind of experiences within the experiences that you're viewing on screen. So while that's the thing, is like with like action movies and stuff like that, it's fun to have that security where you're like, I know what I'm kind of gonna get out of this. Like it's gonna go through a roller coaster of different things, but I know that it's probably going to end well and eventually, or in some way it's going to tie together and I'm going to be comforted. Where like some of these other ones, it's like sometimes you don't get that, and it's very like true to life, where it's like sometimes you can try all your hardest to get to that happy ending and it may not come, and or it may come, but you may have to go through a bunch of crazy shit in the middle to get there. And I think that's a thing that growing up, I was someone who was a big asshole on like, well, that shit's stupid and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And eventually coming to terms with like, there's room for all of these things. And that's something that I think people need to understand more, is like, you can appreciate all these things and, stick to the stuff that you really enjoy and love that. You don't need to shit on stuff just because it didn't speak to you. That's going to speak to someone else. So that's, and I grew up with like horror movies, which I would say is like, for me, they feel like I would say villain origin stories of like Marvel
Mhm.
movies in a way. So like the
Mhm.
horror movies I grew up with feel like my Marvel DC kind of
Yeah.
superhero movies where it's like I like this, it's just in a darker place.
Mhm.
But they're like ridiculous characters and scenarios and stuff like that. So it's still like in this weird like kind of fantasy world. So like I get joy from that stuff, and then I like get joy from just like people sitting in a room looking at each other. I'm like, oh, the tension. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and I think that can be something really exciting to explore, and that was with this movie too, which was really cool.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, like I was saying earlier, I had so many of my favorite movies I try to show to people my age, and they're like, "This is boring,"
Mhm.
and I'm like, "This is freaking life. Get
Yeah.
over it." Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
sorry.
And there's stuff where it's like I can understand like and as I've gotten older too, of just being like, okay, there's some movies that I would recommend to people, and other ones I'm like, clearly this is not something you would probably want to sit through. I would
Right.
say try it just to see that like there's
Mhm.
other kinds of cinema out there, but I'm also not going to be like, you're going to love this, because I don't know what you're going to love.
Right.
This is
Yeah, I'm
something,
having to
yeah,
learn that myself because I feel
yeah,
like showing people what like my favorite movies is
yeah,
like my love language. So
yeah,
like if I'm showing you a movie that I love, that means one, that means that you're important to me, and two,
yes,
that means that this thing is important to me, and I'm like
hmm,
showing you a piece of my soul.
yes.
And so I have really had to work hard at like
Oh, it's a
not taking it
challenge.
like not taking it personally when people don't like the movies I like.
Yeah.
Like I tried to show my parents Booksmart the other day, and I'm
Oh, yeah.
like, and they're like, it's cute,
Hmm.
but
You're
like
like,
it's a teen movie, and I'm like,
yeah. Oh, I know. I understand completely. And I still, I still have troubles with it. It's not something I've
Mhm.
mastered by any means. Because I know I went to go see this movie Vitalina Varela with my friend Jay Ray. And
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, I really want you to see this. I don't know if it's going to be your thing, but I would love for you just to
Yeah.
experience this. And it ended, and she was like, no, I didn't like it. But I liked like what it was happening. I was like, I didn't think you would, but I'm so
Mhm.
happy you actually got to see it. And I would
Yeah.
love to hear like what you think about it. And like I even J Ray has, done a lot for me. She went to go
Yeah.
see Andre Rublev with me in theaters, which is like 3.5 hours of just like
Uh-huh.
following a painter around in like
Yeah.
black and white Russian film. And at the end, she was like, holy shit, I cannot believe I sat through that. And I was like, I really
I love
appreciate it.
you.
I love you
Yeah.
so much.
Didn't
And
she go see Satan Tango with you also?
oh, I had like I brought it over, and we watched scenes from it, and we watched most of it. She still has to
Mhm.
finish it, which I tell her every day. But she was enjoying it. She was enjoying it. Which
That's
is
good.
I spoke to her about this too, of like how you kind of where you'll recommend a movie to someone and then immediately be
Mhm.
like, you'll be like, oh, it's my favorite thing in the whole world. And then when they're about to start, it'd be like, okay, but okay, well, I guess it's
Yep.
it's a little bum, and try to like backtrack a
Yep.
bit just to like
Yep. Yep.
prepare them. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I do that with 50/50 all the time because
yeah,
50/50 is I will like put money. That is my favorite movie.
yeah,
Um, but also it's a really hard sell. Cause I'm like, yeah, it's a buddy comedy about a guy who has cancer. And
yes.
everyone's like, what?
Yeah,
I'm not watching that. And I'm like, no,
yeah,
no, 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 no,
yeah, yeah. I know, and it's hard to, because there's certain things where I'm like, oh, this is incredible, but it's just devastation throughout. But then
no.
if
Yeah.
people are like, well, I don't want to watch that. I'm already
Yeah.
miserable. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, and it's like at first I was like, oh, how dare you? Like, just
Yeah.
try it. And I'm like, but you don't know what other people are going through or what they want to see,
Right.
what they want to experience. And I'm like, you just gotta, that's why I've been really thankful for being on Facebook, which the only thing really keeping me on there is because I found so many film groups and people from
Mm,
around the world that I'm like, oh, there are people out there that watch the weird shit that I watch, and we can
yeah.
talk about it and stuff like that. And that's been really cool. And I was not one to like speak a lot with people about stuff, or even formally in a way like this, because I was nervous about expressing myself and not really
Mhm.
knowing how to do it. And this has been a really fun thing to do with people and all kinds of different people. And I'm so glad I got to do this with you. So,
Yeah.
and it's just been a really fun experience to talk to all kinds of different people about different things. Even if they don't like enjoy what I recommend, it's still nice to hear like how it affected them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was cool to watch if we're ready to segue into the next
Oh,
movie.
yeah, we
Like
can. Yeah.
it was really cool to watch one sings, the other doesn't, because I haven't been exposed to that much foreign film.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up with it. I didn't like, it was never something that was really on my radar, except for like the few that like kind of infiltrated is not the right word, but like came into
invaded,
like, but like came into like the American scope and like into like awards, whatever. And so it was cool to watch something that was foreign, both in language and culture, but both just like, but also just like in style to me.
It's like Agnès Varda, who is someone I had gotten into, I think like last year. I was like, you know what, I had seen one of her films beforehand. I'd seen Vagabond, which is
a bunch of people told me to watch that.
Yeah,
also.
you should. It's it has a very interesting approach, and I was kind of like, huh, okay. And then I started watching this movie called, I don't even know, I can't speak French, so like La Bonheur, which is like happiness of hers. And that's when I got fully like I like fell in love. I watched it, and like I was actually texting someone during it and just being like, there's something about her style that's not mixing well with me right now. And then halfway through, there was like a shift, and I started kind of falling into her style and started appreciating it more. And then when it ended, I was just like, I loved that. And it was this weird roller coaster of emotion where I was like, I don't really care. And then it just kind of, something like clicked, and it like, by the end of it, I was like, oh, that was fucking fantastic. And now I want to watch more of her stuff. So then one sings, the other doesn't happen, and that was the one where I was just fully like along the ride, just like just this like joyful kind of it just felt like a hug in a way. And I was just like, I loved the relationship. But before we dive into that, we can explain what it's about. Would you want to try would you want to try to talk about it, or like explain? Or
I mean, I'll give it my best shot. So like it was, from what I got, it was this like, it was a coming of age story of a female friendship, but set against the backdrop of like 1970s women's movement in France. I don't know that much about like the French women's movement.
Yeah.
And like this made me want to look into it more, because, and maybe this movie was just kind of was like revolutionary and like almost like contraband at the time, but like the fact that they spoke so freely in 1977 about abortion on film. And I was like, it was like mid to late 70s in America before we could even say the word pregnant on TV.
Nuts.
And they're talking about abortion in France.
They're singing about it.
They're singing about it.
I know. I was like,
and like you could tell, like in the beginning, like she's getting money so she can like smuggle away to Switzerland and get an abortion somewhere else. Like you can tell, like France wasn't like super excited about abortion.
Yeah.
But like she talked to her parents about it.
Yeah.
And like sang songs about it around France.
Yeah. And that's what was cool about her character. And it's fun to watch just the two of them and their journey together and separately, because, you know, she's Pauline, the redheaded character. She's she starts off in like grade school basically, and is singing in the choir. And then she's very much grounded in her ideals and very much outspoken. And I loved just like the interaction with her parents when she's just like, well, I'm just gonna drop out, so whatever.
Like, see ya.
I know, it's just like, I can get a place, it's fine, I don't care. And the dad's just like, you're horrible and stuff. And she's just like, I don't know what to do with you. And then and you know, she had met her friend before, but they weren't like super close. They like lived near each other in the same building or something, and they meet up at the photographer Jerome, his like photo what am I trying to say?
Gallery?
Studio. Yes. Yeah. I'm like photo hut. Yeah. So,
photo hut.
I don't know shit. So, and he's with Suzanne, the brunette friend, and she has two kids with this guy, but they're not married because his wife is not gonna like give him the satisfaction of, you know, them being together. And that's kind of when they start things over, or like start their friendship again. And he tries, which I love that character Jerome, because he's taking pictures of all these women that he's like, you know, I've caught them off guard. I've caught them in this place where they feel real and stuff. And she's like, well, this is me, like I'm real like this. And he's so put off by that in a weird way where
he's like, no.
Yeah, he's like, this isn't working. And I think he had a weird thing where now I'm not going to say that this led to him hanging himself, but I think I think there was, he was already a tortured artist. I think he had some kind of, I think that was almost like hitting a wall where he thought he had some kind of understanding of women and the life around him, and running into this woman who was so confident in her own self that I think it confused him in a way that maybe he felt like disillusioned his whole life with what was going on. Not to say that that was like a huge factor, but I think it was another thing that like maybe put him in a way of just like, maybe I don't have all the answers. Maybe this is not something I can actually have control over. And it ended up kind of sending him over the edge because he also couldn't provide for his family.
Yeah, I was about to say, he also like, she had to get the money for Suzanne to go get her abortion.
Yeah.
He couldn't do it.
Yeah. And like, she's asking her friends, she's asking teachers, like, hey, where can I get this abortion? And they're like, oh, there's someone down the way. Otherwise you have to go to Switzerland. And, later we find out in the movie that Suzanne didn't go to Switzerland. She, I guess, like kept the money and then went to the
people down the street
who like did the probe, and she had complications and then couldn't have children anymore, which that's something you find out later, which I thought was interesting too, that she, kept that in for so long. And then finally it was just like, so here's what actually happened, which I thought was an interesting moment because the two of them have been pretty open with each other their entire relationship. And then, but that one thing was something where she was just like, I didn't want to have that be another thing probably that you like pity me for, because she was already going through so much shit. And when her husband, or when her like lover like committed suicide, she had to go back home with her shitty parents on
awful parents,
cold ass farm, and
like bring your bastard children.
I know. I was
like, God.
Luckily the kids were just like doop a doop in the yard having a good old time with the dog.
We
or whatever.
love cows.
Yeah. And Suzanne was just like in this cold kind of like, looked like a wasteland in a way of her just like trying to figure out how to type while like practicing on like a board with little sketches of keys on it.
Yeah, it was like almost like construction paper, and she was like practicing there.
Yeah, and she was trying to make herself like better, like at the table. And the father was like, "You need," and because she ended up getting the actual typewriter, and he's like, "You need to get the hell out of here with that shit."
Loud.
Yeah, then she goes to the barn next to the cow and is trying her best to make something of herself after the parents have been like, "You're not making something of yourself," and it's like, well, now she's trying. Give her a fucking pat on the back or something. Like, it's like I get it. It's the late 60s and like early 70s, but Jesus Christ. Pauline goes off to she ends up, I guess, joining a singing group for a little bit, where she ends up meeting
almost like performance art.
Yeah, and that's like what was cool. She was like kind of going the hippie route and meeting all these different women who were like in the revolutionary scene and very like just like the feminist movement. And she met Darius, the guy who's like from Iran, and she ends up marrying him eventually, but she meets him while she's going to get an abortion. So she's like, oh, there's this guy who's clearly comfortable enough with women choosing what they want to do with themselves, and like the abortion and feminism and stuff like that. And he seemed rather liberal, so she's like falls for him. And then her thing with her group kind of falls through. She doesn't get funding, and then she goes off to her exotic romance in Iran with Darius. And so that was
and then he turns out to be another dude, and you're like, no!
And that's what I loved about her experience, because she was like, she kind of was one of those people with like, she had her head in the clouds in a way of where she was like kind of chasing a dream the whole time. So she's like, oh, this will be a new adventure. I get to go live my exotic romance in a place that's like so foreign to me. And then she gets there and has a kid, and that comes a little later. She gets pregnant and she's like kind of plays housewife for a little bit, but enjoys like the culture. And then as like the facade of her dream-like idea of the situation falls away, she's like, oh, I'm just a housewife and he's just a generic husband. So I've fallen into a situation I didn't want.
The scene when she's there and she's like, oh, I finally have like inspiration to write music again. And then he comes in and is like, is dinner ready?
Yeah.
And she's like, no.
Another
I'm,
fun
like,
phallic scene where she's cutting the cucumber and just like, and they like zoom in on her. Like, and I was like, yes. It was cool to see her like, listen, I gotta go. I gotta like, I want to have the baby in France. I want to be next to my friend who they are over the years continue just to write letters with each other. So it's like the one constant in their lives where they can kind of depend and vent to each other, even if it's like over, you know, country lines and stuff like that. Which I think that's what's really beautiful, because they also get to have their own experiences and remain friends through such crazy times. And another thing I love the music in the movie.
The music is so good.
It's so just like sweet and bubbly and fun. The one moment specifically that I loved is when she's in Amsterdam having the abortion with all these other women, and there's like this moment where the camera's like following all these women who are just kind of waiting in that area, and then she starts this song about like all the abortees like hanging out and just kind of waiting around, and there's it's like, but it has like this like lovely little thing to it where she's on the boat and just kind of like la la la, and I love her just approach to the situation, though she is going through this, you know, big moment. She's also just like I guess secure in herself and her decision, and you know, she's fighting, you know, or protesting on like the front lines basically of this trial that's happening, which is based on a real trial that happened where this young girl was raped, got pregnant, and wanted to have an abortion, and that was kind of like from what I read, the beginning of like the feminist movement in France, and so it was kind of based on that situation. And that's where the two women meet again, where they're just like, oh, it's good to see you, and they're all kind of like in different little places, and and
I love like the like through line of the daughter, of Suzanne's daughter. Like you see her at the beginning when she's like 3, and then at the end Suzanne is like, oh, I'm worried about her, and her new husband's like, oh, well, you taught her to be independent and to like not like repress herself. So she's fine.
She's doing that.
You taught her what she needs. And then you see her like out with a boy, and he's like trying to like get her to have sex with him, and she's like, nah, I'm good.
She's like, I don't know if I want to do that right now.
She's like, I'm good. She's like, but thank you, but no, I'm good. And it's not like a no, it's like a nah.
No thanks.
Which I think like goes back to like what struck me most while watching it was just like, I kept watching it and be like, this is one of the most European movies I've ever watched. Because it was just like it was French. And 2, because I was like, America is just so sexually repressed, especially in the 1970s.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, except for like the hippies who were like this like culture over here. The rest of America was like, no. And so it was really interesting to see a film from a very different culture that was not only set in the 70s but made in the 70s. Because I feel like even like American movies now that are set in the 70s but they're made now with the knowledge that we have can be like, oh yeah, this is what people were thinking because this is what we think now, but like this was made in the 70s.
It's just it was modern for what it was, and it's very much of the time and represented it so well, and like very open, like no shame nudity. It wasn't like oh no, you walked in on me. It was like, oh, here's this art thing that I'm doing and I'm completely topless, or here, I'll pose for this photo for you, sure, no problem. And that's what I loved so much about it, that it felt so confident in itself, and that's the Agnès Varda, and like when you see more of her stuff, her characters are just so sure of themselves in ways that I guess some characters during that time, and especially in different places in the world, that wouldn't be able to express themselves in that way or be afraid to. And Agnès Varda was like a big feminist, and there's like a quote that's where she's like, I tried to be like a nice feminist, but I was too angry, something similar like that. And that's like, if you like watch more of her movies too, you'll see just kind of how her characters are very much, I guess, confident and lived in their self. And they just kind of approach life in a way that's so sure of what they want to accomplish, and it's so exciting. And that's why when I finished this movie, I was just like, that's the most confident display of like feminism in a movie that I've ever seen. Like it was so sure of itself. It didn't have to like be so pointed. It just was. And it was like like unashamed, did it what it was. It wasn't like trying to convince the audience one way. It was just like, this is the experience. This is what, this is the, people, women who are very sure of themselves and are feminists and living their lives how they want to, against the oppressive patriarchal society. And and finding and I love that it ends in such a happy note in their own way, where they just are like, we've struggled through things, but we've done it in ways that we've done ourselves, and we've made our own decisions.
We've created this family for ourselves. And
and they're all like content by the end. And I was just like, this is so fucking beautiful.
It's so beautiful. Like, and honestly, I went into it because we had talked about, like, when we were like picking what movies to watch, I'd asked, like, do you want them to be related in any way? And you're like, nah. And so I kind of went in being like, oh, these will be completely opposite movies. But then I was watching it and I was like, oh no, like, these women walked so that Kate and Jill could run. Like, if these women didn't exist, characters like Kate and Jill and like so many other female characters we have in cinema now wouldn't exist. It's
beautiful.
And it's gorgeous. And so and it's also like the way that this movie handled women and sexuality and their sex lives versus like the scene in Drinking Buddies after the night at the bar, when everyone's like, to Olivia, to Kate, after she like thinks she slept with a guy, and they're all like giving her shit about it. It's just so different. And like the different cultures of like how we treat women and sexuality, and like the way that we represent the female experience is just fascinating. And the fact that one was in 1977 and one was 2013, but the one in 1977 feels more progressive.
And that's a big thing, is like when people talk about, like, especially Hollywood, who is trying to catch up with things, and they're so behind the times when it comes to certain things.
They're trying.
And there's an attempt to like try to get more and like inclusion and represent, different stories that need to be told. And there's like this part of me where I'm like, everyone, y'all need to look at other countries, because they've been doing a lot of this stuff for years. And that's what was so exciting, is to see stuff like there's even like Rainer Werner Fassbinder. He's a German director who had like gay characters in his films in like the 70s and 80s, where the story wasn't really about them being gay. There were just gay characters in it. And to see something like, there's like a movie called Fox and His Friends about like a prostitute, like this guy who's ends up like falling in love with this other guy, and he's in this like world of just like gay people, and they're just kind of living, but the story isn't about them being gay. It's about this guy being manipulated by this other dude and the kind of shit he runs into. And I remember like watching that and being like, this is like the kind of progressive stuff I would love, is like gay characters going through other things besides them being gay, or like, like, and it's just
not their coming out story. It's just
it's like there's more, which I think there's of course places for that. And I think those are also necessary stories to be told as well, because there are plenty of people who are still in a situation where they do not feel comfortable being themselves and don't have the environment to be themselves. And I think that's why I love to push these kind of movies where I'm like, y'all try this. I think it'll show you with something that maybe you've never seen in a way that isn't so accessible in America. And I try my best to be like, y'all try this one. So I'm really glad to be here and like try to like learn from people and also like do the same. And that's why this has been something I love to do, and I love getting different recommendations. So I'm so glad like you got to watch this. This was one I was like, I would love Emmy to watch, and I'm so glad I got to watch Drinking Buddies too.
Thank you for the recommendation. It was really good. I liked it a lot.
No, thanks. It's and I want to, there was something else. With the movie, I thought there was an interesting moment where she the Pauline or Apple, where she's pregnant with the second child because she left the other one with her husband Darius in Iran, and
Yeah,
she was
she's like, just give me another one.
yeah, I'll take another baby. Yeah, that was like
Yeah,
where I
she's
was
like,
also like,
just put another baby in me, and then we'll go our separate ways, and you can
yeah,
have a kid, and I'll have a kid, and we'll be fine.
yeah. And
I
there was like,
what?
yeah, there was this thing where I was
You
like,
can do that?
yeah, I was like, okay, so you're okay with leaving the child that you gave birth to, but it was someone, she was also someone who was like, I don't want to be tethered down by anything. I want to follow what makes me happy. And I do, you know, there's a sense of where I feel bad for the kid that she kind of leaves behind, but they still keep in touch in their own way. And, you know, there are different structures of like parents and family, and there are all kinds of different things. So it's like, there's no way to say like, it's not going to work out and this kid's going to be like a disaster by any means. But, I did think it was a very strange thing where she was just like, well, I'll just get another one. Like,
yeah, she's like, just put another one in me. You're fine.
Yeah, she's like, I'll take care of it. And there was like a moment where she's in that the group that she's in, which I think they're called the Orchids. Yeah. And she is like singing to these women, and it's about being pregnant, and then one woman's like, well, why are you just singing about this? Like you're kind of talking down about women who don't want to have babies. And she's like, it's not about that, it's about just that. Like, you know, being pregnant, like if you are, it's also, you know, going through those emotions and dealing with that experience and stuff, and this is just what that's about. She's like, I have no problem with that. And I love that she was like ready to just be like, bam, no, like this is but like also
that it wasn't aggressive.
No, she was just like, it was very respectful, the two of them kind of like that whole exchange, which I thought was
it was
really
like
cool.
I have this point and these questions to make as an audience member, and she's like, oh well, here's my answer.
And it was very
let's
supportive.
have a dialogue about it. Here you are.
And I loved that. And it was great because there was a like a sisterhood that was between like all these women that she surrounded herself with, which I loved so much. And she never wanted to get away from that. And she was just like, this is where I'm the happiest. And even when like a man would come along, it would just be like, okay, but she still found her happiness with these women that she was with, and singing and just going off in the air and singing songs and
singing songs.
And I loved at the end where they also bring, you know, there's that part where they bring in the title where it's like one sings, the other doesn't. And but they still come to a place where they finally found happiness on their own terms. And I just thought that was just this beautiful moment that didn't feel like fake or forced. It was just like they clearly went through issues and stuff, and things may not be perfect, but they are they're both content in where they are in their lives. And I thought that was beautiful.
And like kind of like going back to what we were talking about earlier, it's like a film about life. It's like, it was set in a more like dramatic setting, like a protest and a very specific movement. But within that specificity, it was like, here's this universal theme of like, we grow and we learn and we have to find our happiness. Which I think could be said for Drinking Buddies as well. It's like, here's this very specific world of like brewing in Chicago, which is like, what other movies are about brewers? I don't know. It's a very specific job that has a lot of like science and detail to it, and like a very like skilled trade. But within that world, it's like, here's a film about life and growing and learning how to be happy within your own skin and your own life. And I just love that. I love that.
That's so great. I'm glad that those were like kind of paired together, because I also didn't like get the connection either. And then like
I was like, oh yeah, sure, we'll watch two cool movies.
Because that's what I was like, whatever. I mean, I'm sure we could do that, and it's been fun because we each little episode I've done with someone, we've been able to connect them in some way, which has been really kind of neat, which I enjoy too, because I think I picked the last episode, which will be out later. It's with my friend Gustav, and we did like the last movie and Inland Empire, and they're different movies, very different approaches, but then there's a similarity with their like structure and the narrative and how it's very meta at times and stuff. And I was like, oh well, I'm glad we did this, and it just happened to work out. So I'm glad this kind of worked out like that as well. Also, I loved that there was just like a full scene of like a breastfeeding scene, and that it was like real. And I was I was like, yes. I was like, that was just like, it was just like, beautiful to see, where it was just like Agnès Varda was just like, I'm gonna show it and I don't give a shit. And she like just goes for it. And I
Because also
love her.
like every woman I know in life, yes. Like everyone I know in life who has an infant,
yeah,
if they've been like, oh, my baby's hungry, like I've asked them, do you want privacy? They're like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Boop, boop. And I'm
that's
like,
amazing.
Great. So I'm like, I don't get why in movies everyone's like, it has to be covered up and you don't see it, or we go into a separate room and like,
I know. Just
no,
if a mom
is sitting in their living room and they're like, oh, my baby's hungry, they're not going to ask you to leave. They're just going to be like,
it's like, I'm not trying to arouse you. I'm trying to keep my baby alive.
Yeah. So, like feeding human life for my body. Like
that's a you problem if you're pissed. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's why I was so happy to see that, where she kind of like covered so many bases with the film. And it was like, there was never like a moment where it was like trying to, it was never like forceful. It was just it just felt so secure in what it was doing. Yeah. And it was just this like as if it was just normal and not like I guess like spotlight on it. It was just like, these are these people living their lives, and just during this like very monumental moment in history. And I just love that she was there, and as a woman approaching this in this way, especially during the time. And I know like in France, they were doing all kinds of crazy shit. I mean, there's a lot out there I've seen that they've done a lot of different things, but that's what's cool is like during that time, there was a lot of like, fuck it, we're going to do what we want. And she went for it. And there's other films of hers too, where like people get angry about her approach to certain things because she was like, I mean, this is like how it is though. So I don't know what to tell you. You may be angry at their choices, but this is what's going down. And I love that about her. So
yeah, it was great. And I feel like another thing that kind of like connected the two, I noticed in both films, was because it's about just like people living their lives. There were a lot of long shots in both films of like just not nothing happening, but like it wasn't like cut to scene dialogue starts. It was like cut to scene. Let's watch like Anna Kendrick build a diorama for 30 seconds before anything happens.
Yeah.
Or like let's one sings like let's watch like Palmer Suzanne like walk down the street as herself for like 20 seconds before anything happens.
Yeah.
Because it's life.
I love that, because you can also like, no matter what is happening on screen, you can kind of try to connect to that person, or like, what are they possibly going through during this moment? Even when they're walking down the street, where are they going? What are they thinking about? Where are they in their life currently? What are they like nervous about something? Are they happy? And like having those different thoughts while, watching someone do something that would probably seem rather mundane. It's like even Anna Kendrick putting together like her stuff. Like, what is she thinking? Is she doing this out of like, to distract her from whatever's going on? Is she like anxiety? Like what's going on?
Or
and
like I think, that long shot of her at the end of that scene, whenever he's like, Chris and Kate broke up, and she's just like, oh, there's just like that pause where she's like, and you just like watch everything fly through her head.
So much. Yeah.
And she's like, oh yeah. And like that, I think like she said something like that. She's like, oh wow.
Oh God. And then in her head.
But you can see like right behind her eyes, like
yeah. I know, and it's very real. So that was like really cool to see that as well, because then you could see the different dynamics of like her approach to like the relationship of her boyfriend, and then Olivia Wilde and her relationship with that guy, and her relationship with, and then just like, oh my god, like where I need all the answers. But
like the scene in One Sings when she's like trying to call the financier for her show, and also trying to make dinner, and they're like, oh, just call back at 8, and she's like, and then like in the next scene she's like, 3 more minutes.
Yep.
I'm like, I have been there.
Yes. I know. And it's just,
and it's like, but it's like this very real, visceral, like, oh, I have to wait.
Yeah.
And but it's like so real of like what's going through heads. Like, why are they making me wait? Why can't they just talk to me now? That means something bad's going to happen. Like if they can't just say, yeah, we got it. Like that means something bad is happening. And like just that spiraling.
It's very familiar anxiety.
So I'm going to roast a chicken and it'll be fine.
Yeah. Like keep distracted, even though it's constantly in your head. Yeah. I love that. It's so great. But is there anything else specifically you wanted to cover from this one?
Another like very stark contrast I saw between the two was like, it was very technical, the technical contrast of like, because I think both because of the time period and because of the style, One Sings was shot on 35 millimeter film, which you have a finite amount of it. So it's like everything has to be precise. And so like it was almost, which is interesting that like this film starts like in a photography studio, because like every shot was almost like set up like a photograph.
Yeah.
And it was like very still. And then the stuff was happening around it. Whereas Drinking Buddies, because it was improv, like I think there might have been like 2 shots where the cameras were on sticks, but everything else was handheld. And so it was like shaky and like visceral.
Yeah.
And that's like partly because of the freedom of like modern age. It was digital. They can just like hit delete and get more and it's fine.
Yeah.
But I think the feeling of viewing those 2 films is so different. Yeah. Because like One Sings is like, oh, I am watching a piece of art. Like I am watching, it's like still and precise, and like I am watching a very clear vision of what this director and what this filmmaker wanted. Yeah. And then there's Drinking Buddies, which is like almost as if like you can like almost like feel the footsteps the cameraman was taking as they're watching, because it's shaking, because it's just like on someone's shoulder. Yeah. And they just had to follow these actors around as they lived their lives within a scene, because it was all improvised. Yeah,
that's and it's great because it's 2 very different ideas of filmmaking and practice, and just to see how they're both successful considering like what they're trying to tackle. And it's great because I think even in One Sings the Other Doesn't, even though like you could tell like the shots were very much like planned for the most part, it seems like, and like which Agnès Varda was definitely someone who does that. And and then with Drinking Buddies, it feels almost, not to say like a documentary, but it feels like you are watching these people just, you know,
it's like a certain level of voyeurism to it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the camera is another character just kind of hanging out with them. So it is great, and I think they work very like appropriately for what they're trying to accomplish. And it would be interesting to see the techniques used different,
like
flip it, which I think that's there's like projects out there where there's this movie called like The 5 Obstructions, where there's 2 directors and they take the same like script and concept and they film it in their own way, and it's very interesting to see how that kind of plays out and to see how they do that. But yeah, that's what I thought they were both really great, and I loved that they got paired, these 2 got paired together. So I'm really happy we did that.
I was not expecting it, and then I was just like, oh
no, and I'm so glad you got to see something by Agnès Varda, and I think you'll like a lot of her work. And if you like Drinking Buddies, like Hong Sang-soo, his films are something I think you would really enjoy, because they're very like conversational and hanging out with these people like drinking and going through issues. And he also plays with structure too, which is really cool, narrative structure. But I think you'd get a kick out of those. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm so happy.
Oh my God, thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
And if you want to plug anything, do that right now.
So like if you head over to my YouTube channel, every Saturday I do like a Creativity Saturday challenge. I don't know if challenge is the right word for it, but I post a video every Saturday of me doing something creative. So like I've done, my first one was a film analysis of the film Stowaway, coincidentally also starring Anna Kendrick.
Amazing.
And then I've done like scenes, I've done monologues, I've done some music, I've done some like visual art. I have a film going up this week, like a short film, like a kind of video sketch of an idea I'm working on.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Going up today. So yeah, every Saturday, if you want to, I usually post it on my socials, which is just at Emmy Carlyle 95.
Perfect.
But yeah, every Saturday I have that video up, and that's all I got currently. Everything else is kind of like ideas mulling around in my head that I don't have anything to plug for yet.
They'll be out and about soon enough. So that's great. Yes, thank you again. And I'm sure we can do this again another time for sure.
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah, whether it's on the podcast or not, let's talk about film all the time.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Bye.
Bye.